حوت. شو ندخل حوت في الموضوع اللي كنا نحكوا عليه؟
Marhaba and Assalamu alaikum, friends. So today I wanted to talk about sort of the different views on gender roles within the series Rubik and also compare it to the play No Exit, because there is a lot of similar symbolism with the mirrors. Firstly, I wanted to say I think the family tree I made before was wrong, and I think Nuria is actually Marwan's sister and not Nasser is the one who's related by marriage. I think evidenced by Marwan's photo album. In some of the photos, it's Naria, and Marwan, I don't know if her first name is given, but I think that means she's the one related to the mother. And I think that also further explains why Nasser seems very resentful of Marwan and is always, telling him he wants rid of him and that he's useless. Marwan also says Amira.
على فكرة أنا أبوي وأمي متوفين وعايش مع عمتي.
Auntie, rather than saying, with his uncle. So I can't recall which word he uses for the uncle, but I was thinking it was Khel and not, well, I mean, I remember him being called a dinosaur, but that's about it. But he often calls Naria Auntie and seems to be closer to her as well. But I also thought I would talk a little bit about Sartre's play No Exit, which I know I have another copy in French around here, but here is an English translation. So anyway, there are many parallels between the mirror symbolism in Rubik and also that in the play No Exit. Garcin is a journalist, and he says he deserted to go to Mexico to start a pacifist newspaper. And of course, everyone else sees him as a coward and a deserter, and he's very much aware of this. He's able to see what's happening on Earth and says, Gomez has stopped talking, and what he thinks of me has gone back into his head. So he's very relieved to not be experiencing other people's views of him. And he was also terrible to his wife, drinking and bringing home other women right under her nose, just because it was so easy to upset her. She admired me too much, he says. She was a born martyr. And he also notices that there are no mirrors, no windows, nothing reflective, and nothing breakable when he is escorted into his room in hell. Inez, a former postal clerk, is clearly attracted to Estelle, the third character locked inside the room, but Estelle thinks Inez doesn't count because she is a woman. She's only interested in Garcon's attention because he's the only man there, and she's used to the male attention. Estelle has 6 mirrors in her bedroom, we learn. She liked to watch herself talk, to see herself as others saw her. Therefore, she looked at her own surface, and there is no introspection happening. There's only focus on other people admiring her, and Estelle admiring her own reflection like Narcissus. Everyone says I have lovely hair, and after all, a man killed himself on my account, she says. Inez says Estelle would assure Garcon that he was God Almighty if she thought it would get her attention from him. So Estelle wants to be seen as others see her, which is why she's horrified when Inez tells her that her mouth looks cruel, and yet she claims to find Estelle attractive. How does she know if Inez's taste is like her own taste? The views of other people are always distorted and colored by their own tastes, their own issues and experiences, and their own expectations. It can never be a true reflection. Estelle's reflection in an actual mirror was comforting to her, like something she had tamed, unlike Inez. Estelle, you think too much, that's your problem, she says, though clearly one of her problems involves not thinking enough. But this contrasts her with the other two, who are more introspective. Garcon says to Inez, you know what evil costs. Clearly, Estelle does not. But even if these two can reflect upon the cost of their behavior, none of the three seems to be willing to really be held accountable or change their behavior. Likewise in Rubik, Marwan talks about breaking mirrors all the time. He broke the one in the garage. The one in his aunt's home just reminds him how much he hates mirrors. He thinks they make people narcissistic, and this is also represented visually, with so many scenes with Amira standing in front of a mirror, brushing her hair or watching herself as she talks on the phone. Despite the supposed lack of mirrors in his life, Marwan still seems to have difficulty being accountable for his own actions. He blames society, lack of money, and drugs.
إيه
ناخذ في الحبوب لأن ما كانش في حل تاني باش نتجوز أميرة وندير حوش إلا الطريقة هذه.
As if this absolves him. And yet he continued to keep taking the drugs in order to keep doing the same actions just so that he could acquire money, without paying any mind to the lives he was impacting by doing so. He does have a moment late in the show when he's afraid of God's judgment after he dies, and this contrasts his current actions with the time he stole bread from his Aunt Sarah's shop. He felt terrible for a week about the bread and for the repercussions.
وتوا وين وصلت يا مروان؟ المرة هذه مش خبزة، المرة هذه رواح ماتت. بس أنا ما كنتش في وعي، كنت تحت تأثير الحبوب.
His current actions are much worse than a child stealing some bread. He cares too much about appearances, though, even if he says otherwise. Marwan admires himself in the mirror with his new suit, not thinking about how he got it. All that matters is that he looks better to Amira and to others, but this is all surface level.
المشكلة مش في وجهي، المشكلة في المراية.
Marwan is right. There is nothing wrong with his face. But the problem is clearly not the mirror. The problem is Marwan's and others' inability to care about anything that isn't superficial most of the time. Breaking mirrors doesn't fix this. He substitutes the approval of others and having more money for admiring his own reflection. He has no need for that anyway. Unlike Amira, he's treated as if money is the only thing he could possibly offer other people.
موضوع الحوش لقيت له حل. أنت بتجيب لنا الفلوس.
Amira is treated like her looks and youth are the only assets that she has and the only way to get anything in life. And the only thing worth getting for her and her mother is a man with money.
أنا مستحيل نبدل راجل بفلوسه وبتجارته وبخدمته على خاطر عيل يخدم في ورشة.
Age and looks don't matter, her mother tells her. Only that he's wealthy and can improve her lot in life and the way the neighbors view them.
الراجل مش بعمره، الراجل بيجيبها. حفظتها الجملة هذه.
And regarding gender roles in the series, Marwan is looked down on for his job at the Warasha, and he doesn't make a lot of money, falus, and the garage isn't profitable anymore. His uncle Nasser verbally abuses him all the time, so he sees a cute girl walking down the street and wonders if he could change things, impress the girl, get married, and start a new life. But he needs a lot more money for all that, and it seems his only value in life is his role as a provider. I also enjoyed the portrayal of the relationship between Amira and her mother. And also from watching various programs, noticed the different way that Libyan women seem to wear a headscarf. I'm not sure if there's a different name or if it's just a wisha, but putting it over the head and then throwing it over opposite shoulders. A lot of people in a lot of countries have, France comes to mind, have discussed headscarves in general and whether or not these were oppressive to women. But I would say it depends on the context, as with anything. And people wear head coverings for various reasons, including protection from the weather. But Amira is only concerned with a man having money and tells Amira this is the only thing she should be concerned about. Not looks, not age, not personality.
أنت مش تبيني نتزوج واحد بحوشة وبخدمته ومعبي يصرف علي وعليك. والمعنى؟
Amira doesn't want to marry a dinosaur and says things that, and she says that things have changed in her generation.
الراجل بفلوسه مش بشكله. هذا كان على أياماتكم يام.
She doesn't seem to have a lot of say as to whether she gets married or not. Her mother is determined to marry her off to that dinosaur, Nasser. She doesn't want her to finish high school just to marry a rich man. She is obsessed with how others see her and her family. She keeps talking about people looking down on them because her husband, Amira's father, died of an overdose. This makes her think she's looking out for Amira by making her marry a much older man.
يعني بيني وبينها أكتر من 30 سنة. هذا من عمر بويا الله يرحمه.
Who she thinks will provide stability. And then they won't have to rent and they will have a car. Amira does talk back a bit and gets slapped for it in the process.
علاش احنا شلنا قصنا يام؟ عشان بوي كان مدمن ومات بجرعة زايدة، معنا احنا كلنا زيها.
Amira wants a good-looking man closer to her own age, not a man as old as her dad, who already has a wife and kids. Nasser also starts off meeting her without telling his current family, greatly upsetting Nuria.
يا فضيحتك قدام الناس وانت ماشي بتتجوز بنت في عمر بنتك.
Wafa, on the other hand, wouldn't care if her father married Amira. She would prefer that, in fact, because then perhaps Marwan would marry her. Of course, most American audiences will find this scandalous because, not just because they're first cousins, but more than that, the aunt and uncle raised Marwan, along with Wafa, living in the same house, much more like brother and sister than first cousins. So when she realizes this won't happen anyway, she feels sorry for herself a bit. Her father is in jail. Marwan is definitely not marrying her, and she worries no one will support her and take care of her.
أبوك خلاص راح. أنا ما قعد لي حد في الدنيا هذه نتكى عليه.
So this also underlines, well, the societal roles of women and the worries of not being able to support themselves.
والأحسن إني نتزوج واحد يحبني وخاف عليا حتى لو أنا ما نحبهاش.
Nuria makes pastries and Nasser sold drugs, and presumably Nasser made most of the money. And after all, he was buying another house and planning on getting married again and supporting another woman. So Wafa calls up Salam, whom she previously rejected when he showed an interest in marrying her.
وفاء أنا طالبك بالأحلام ونويت نكمل معاك نص ديني.
But now she decides she'd rather marry a man who cares for her than to waste her time pining away for Marwan, who isn't going to marry her anyway. Also, for Western audiences, it seems like Marwan is moving a bit quickly when he tells Amira, a girl he only just met, that he loves her and wants to marry her and would do anything for her. He claims love at first sight, but he really knows nothing about her.
أنا متأكد إنك عارفة إني نحبك بس اللي ما تعرفيش شيء.
And Amira does seem to use her appearance to get what she wants at times. And she's just using him to get out of the whole Nasser situation anyway. But this also underscores how she is often treated as ornamental, just there to look pretty. And no one cares if she wants an education or what her interests are. Near the end of the series, Amira finally confronts her mother.
انت انسانة مادية مش همك الا الفلوس وبس مصلحتي وسعادتي تمشي في 60 داهية.
All she cares about is money. She cares nothing about Amira's happiness, and she complains constantly about the past. Of course, Amira had also initially refused to speak to Marwan at all at first. He was a garage boy, and that seemed beneath her. Fatma was also horrified that Amira would meet up with him, at least until her mother wanted her to marry an older man, and she decided maybe marrying Marwan would be a way out of that situation. She also thinks Nasser has no self-respect, or he wouldn't be trying to marry a teenage girl. Same goes for Nuria, who thinks the age difference, a girl the same age as his daughter, is scandalous. Likewise with Marwan, pressure to conform to these expectations of a man as a provider makes him behave badly and do things that it seemed like he wouldn't have done anyway, initially, without this pressure. But he has on a display of having money and being able to provide for Amira, both for her and to oppress her mother and gain her approval. Amira says she doesn't care, but she also demands that he take her out to nice restaurants every week and that he have a car and a house beforehand.
خاطري ناكل في مطعم فخم وجبة حوت وطاولة يكون فيها جميع أصناف الحوت.
There's no كيفهلك يا مروان or
أنت بتجيب لنا الفلوس. موضوع الحوش لقيت له حل.
What's your favorite dinosaur, Marwan? And أكيد هو مش خال ناصر. Always أريد هوش or أريد سيارة or أنا فلوس.
شو ندخل الحوت في موضوع اللي كنا نحكوا عليه؟
إيش عرف يا مروان? Meanwhile, Ayman's former love interest, she couldn't be with him because he was too much of a wimp, basically. So he went and beat a man half to death, thinking that would impress her. And it didn't. He said, I don't know what you want from me. Do you want me to be kind or to be strong?
أنا ما عادش فهمت أنت شو تبيني بالضبط. تبيني ضعيف ولا تبيني قوي؟
يعني ما فيش حل وسط، يا ما تسكت يا ما تضرب الراجل قبل التالتة.
She responds that there could be an intermediate between being a total wimp and beating people to death. Man, thanks for watching. Goodbye, friends.